I'm definitely ready to throw a fiesta, rain dance, something around here because I got so much energy. Obviously, I've cracked into something. You know, I said I cracked it. And obviously, I'm in the type of environment, but I'm working diligently for humanity. I haven't at all given up. In fact, I'm extremely jubilant about the latest information that was uncovered. But I will say this first and foremost, that there's going to be different ways that you can definitely see what I'm going to explain. It's designed to actually give you all of your energy and power back, because either none of it belongs to you or all of it belongs to you. And so the reality is I think the power in the number 8 is to consume at times all of the things that we think are our problems in a sense, put them inside. And that hedges them in so that way we can actually deal with them right there versus just allowing them to run free in the netherworld. But basically, here's what I got going on. I started getting a lot of transmissions about the deeper levels of knowledge here on the planet. Obviously, everyone knows I've been in this for about 8 or 9 years now, just consistently. And I started tapping into the realization and just tracing everyone's origins of the hemispheric problem with our consciousness. And actually, I wouldn't even say it's a problem. It's the hemispheric nature of our consciousness, which is the left brain, right brain, which we all know a lot about. But what we fail to apply is certain things, which is the height of the two empires, kingdoms, whatever that you found existing here on this planet, which will be the Atlantian and the Lemurian, are the two hemispheres of the brain. One is the left brain, Atlantian, logical side, and the other one is the right brain, matriarchal, Kemetan, Upanishad, Dravidian side. Okay? And where we're at now is we are here after a war. We're still being attracted here to Earth through a method that I uncovered that's very ingenious. But we're actually being still continuously attracted to Earth, but still after a war where just what Curtis was explaining earlier, that was the agreement after the war. Because sometimes when we say there's a war, we have to understand when a war is over, then there's a treaty. There's a covenant that's made. Someone has to sign some things and agree to certain things. No more powers, no more above the second chakra. Your generation will serve my generation. There'll be a lot of stipulations, which you gentlemen have profusely and women have profusely laid out. Okay? But what we need to look at, though, is this covenant of salt. And this story of what took place in Abyssinia, which is the abyss, with the dark-skinned Dravidians, which actually encompass the genes of both races because they have straight hair but dark skin. That's both traits of the two opposite poles of the spectrum. And the interaction between the planet Venus, which traces that 5-pointed star out in the sky that you see, the Eastern Oriental traditions, the Islam, the one that doesn't want to follow the pagans the most, but what symbols do they use? The crescent moon and the star, even though they forgot. Most of the masses there have forgot what that means, but we know what it means because we see this pentagram, which is the sign of the elder stars from the elder race. We see this pentagram everywhere in our society today. We see in the Aztec culture them looking at Venus and its processions, especially in conjunction with the moon and the numbers that it's spitting out. We see that Venus is the shell. We see Venus connects to Phi. We see Venus as this portal. And then we see Venus as her real name, which is Aphrodite, Inanna, Ishtar, etc. So we actually find this planet that is connected to being really more the mother of this Phi-based template than any other thing from Gaia. Okay? And so this is what we have to realize, because in this planet that is next to us, Venus also has a son named Amor, who comes back to us as Cupid, and then later on even as Jesus, and in quite a few different other individuals. When you talk about the genealogy that comes from what was also known as the Amorites, right? Amor means black. So then we get to this connection of what was going on with the serpent tribes, or those who had very close serpent DNA. Those who had come from, you see, serpent or the pentagram. But that was an elder race, meaning that the race had knowledge about cycles that we're going through right now before this whole thing started. And that information or that knowledge is encompassed in one thing called an ME. Now, this ME is something to the tune of the language of the priesthood. It is strictly in a tense, an Enochian language or a cone-based language. Why there is another language that is inferior to that called the Malachim, or the language of the king, or the language of the angels. But when you get this cone-based language, you see, as Santos knows very well, this is all hypercube type stuff now. Meaning that when someone starts to use this knowledge, you're no longer in the organic reality. You're actually in the shadow of the organic reality, the illusion of it. And how it works is that each corner attracts and holds the light. The corner or the right angle can hold or capture light in the corner. And as light builds up in corners, it creates spheres. So if you looked into this thing from Metatron's perspective, basically, you would see nothing but infinite amounts of cells of light. There would only need to be one very powerful light to get the generator started. Hello, the sun, which is also the soul. Because the sun connects directly to the souls in our bodies. In fact, our souls create the sun. They're two intertwining species. But what's happening to us is that we are getting attracted by all this vortex-based, phi-based energy into these incarnations over and over and over again, where sequentials, which is the logical, it's the right brain, far negative right brain. The sequentials are actually continuously running these matrices over and over and over again, not allowing us to graduate. So let you see this planet from the stage of an extraterrestrial. If I land on your planet and I splash down and I come out of the water, when I look on the ground, if I see shells, I already know there's intelligent life further inland. I already know that something is incubating here. I want you to start seeing it like that. When you see husks, and then you see whatever was in the husk missing, you know it's not gone, especially if you have a third eye. Because you watch the ethereal energy rise from the husk. And then if you could keep seeing it, if you had the sight of an angel, you could see it then get collected into another corner of bright light of an experience that it wants to have next in a vessel that is either slightly larger or slightly smaller, depending on if it appreciated or depreciated its soul measurement while it was living in this incarnation. So now I have to get a little bit more advanced because I have to explain to you that we're sitting on a system right now where there is hypersentient beings. They've already been using the animals as portals to carry the souls, like group souls especially, into this cube. Meaning that there has to be an attraction here. If you understand anything about spirituality, it's all phallic and yoni based. It's all communion and communication and Eucharist. So in order to attract something to this cube, it has to give off light or energy. And this is where the prana and the kundalini come in, because animals also have it. In fact, it seems like the only command that was given to the animals was to be multiplied, not think. So when you see them multiplying, you see that they generate energy on the astral plane that attracts other souls that can fit into that vessel. If you really want to understand how big we were as far as souls at first, is you will understand many of the mammals and the reptiles that existed on this planet before it was grinded down even further by gravity. So, meaning souls were so large, if you did happen to incarnate into a physical realm, which is below the speed of light, you had to actually take a large vessel because your soul was still too big to fit in some minuscule vessel. And so that's also where you see Atlantean tech as technology, building bodies, creating vessels. This is what you find in the real occult knowledge. I don't know what everyone else is looking over, but as I've been digging, keyword after keyword after keyword after keyword, continuing to find out why the hell am I on this planetary system with so much immense power and knowledge, I have come into the collaboration of the information, which is just having the brain power, the imagination. So you have to have this imagination, because imagination is a space that you're putting all this stuff in before it fits together. So people who have very contracted imaginations or calcified pineal glands or in fear, they can't put these ideas even in their mind for a moment. They have to
two eyes, two ears, and it's a mirror image of itself. This is the shadow. What was it, Sephira? You said, or the shadow of the shadow.
Right, the shadow of the shadow. And you know, it's funny because you mentioned that I was even able to connect football or the NFL with the Nephilim, and then understand why the football in America is, or actually, excuse me, North America is a Vesica Pisces versus the football in the other parts is a circle. And then how that circle and that Vesica Pisces is the difference between a mammal and a reptile. And that the cats, obviously, again, as we talked about before, were the portals because they were actually a combination between a lion and reptile. And the reason why we know that a cat is a part of a lion is obviously because of its bill, but not completely a lion is because of its eyes. Because if you look in a lion's eyes, you see a circle. And then you realize, actually, that our good friend the dog is a domesticated wolf. And our good friend the wolf is actually a lion a long time ago, though. When you go back through the genus, they're all those canines are from the same constellation. And so then you can actually pull apart why there's all these quarrels within the priesthood, because you got dog priests, Vatican, meaning Canis. You got dog priests actually mastering over lion priests and herding sheep, because dogs also have the domestic value of being able to herd other animals. And that's also why if you think about it, humans are constantly going through an evolution of creating or something's creating a master race on top of a master race on top of a master race all the time. And this is that whole dominance of creating a better species or getting back to perfection, if you think about it. But if you really think about it, the humans are the master race over the animals. Then there are certain humans that became the master race over the rest of the humans. We're actually about to see where those that have master race over the other humans going to get a master race over them. But it's not going to go the same way that they had actually treated the race under them, because that is not innovation. That's not growth. Growth equals something. That means that it's going to not be like it is now. And so what is the flaw with right now? It's an illusion. So what is the next stage? The desolation of the illusion. And how is that caused? Because of the person regains their identity. Where is their identity? With their ancestors. That's why they try to cut the person off from the ancestor. They've achieved the scything, which is the cutting of the cord. They achieved the scything of cutting the cord on a symbolic level, and this cuts the ancestors away. So thus the person doesn't expect to hear in their mind anymore from grandma. And then once they do hear in the mind from her again, they can't distinguish between her voice and mind control, which is also known as the whisper of the serpent, where United States becomes the universal spirit, which is basically the thing that the individuals that actually use the technology in order to speak into the minds of other individuals by utilizing the frequency through the harp, which is, of course, David's harp or his lyre. And if you think about it, that's how the music plays into the tones and the vibration that lull very powerful beings to sleep. But we dream because we can't die. And then that's how the worlds are created, because when we share a collective dream, like I think I saw Santos like 3 days ago. So we built that through our light, that world that is still yet to be completely developed. Just like somehow I really feel like sometimes the world that I'm in is only developed as far as I can see. And if I happen to fly very fast to the next point, I would see that the next level of it wasn't even developed yet. It just appears when I look. This kind of strange phenomenon.
Here's a question for you, because I don't dream a whole lot. Well, if I do, I'm not really remembering it. It's like it's almost blocked. But anyway, they are lucid when very brief lucidity. But one of the things that, in terms of the dream state, I get a lot of feedback from people telling me that I was in their dream the night before, and I'll get 3 or 4 people in a day telling me that. Right. So. Your perspective on that, because this is kind of
what happens is that these are the rays or the ran, or if you understand as a soul, you're sending out seeds constantly. So when people are thinking about you, they're coming into communion with you. They're now doing the Eucharist basically with you. And so when you have a lot of these out there, though, if you don't have the current that's associated with pumping juice into all of those lines, it becomes hard to activate into your own consciousness, because you're actually spread out into like almost like several holograms of the original, right? So then there's a simple technique though about basically drawing all of them back in. And especially when you're going right before you're about to go to bed, it's basically you pull in all of these thoughts. It's like, okay, everyone, I need me right now. And then you pull those in. And that's more of the organic way of doing it. Obviously, if you look at this from an energetic level, now what's needed to pull in is this force that's like a vacuum. It's like you have to basically shine a light and call all your rands back to you.
Become the magnetic versus being the electric.
Exactly. And so then you pull them all back in and then lock the door. And then now the house, the temple is closed and
Ping.
shut. And then
Epiphany.
now you can go out you could tesseract out the back door and then go enjoy Nebulon 5, where everything is great for about 3,000 years of dream time, which makes up about 20 minutes of Earth. See, what I started also realizing with high spin is the keys to how you can be in more than one place simultaneously. And it's because your consciousness begins to move so fast that this reality slows down like slow motion. And then within like maybe an hour here, you've already went and done a ton of things, and people don't even know that you're just sitting. You could be to everyone else just sitting at the computer. You see what I mean? That's how the game is really being played by individuals who know how to do this. They can be sitting in the library and gone.
It's like the movie Inception, level after level after level.
Exactly.
And the deeper you get, the longer the level is. It could last, like you say, thousands of years.
It's like on different cogs, right?
Yeah.
And then so this is all, of course, this is Metatron's cube, because this is the other thing. We have to be aware that we're actually on the dimension with beings that understand the Enochian and actually use the cube of Metatron in order to project illusionary worlds. And that's a big thing, because they're light trappers. Like, out of all the trappers, the worst ones to get caught around are these light trappers, because the knowledge that they're using is through an urge. Like, it actually is very easy to be pulled into it because it matches something that is like, it resonates with us, right? And so, and that's why it's become so tricky, because that is generally the thing to do. Like attracts light. That's what it's supposed to be. Like attracts like. Now it's opposites attract. That's why we know that we're on the other realm. But when the like attracts light, that means that you actually went into what you thought was going to be a great experience. And then all of a sudden, like I said, the ghost god Good started levying the taxes, and the interest intersect and began to divide you and everything else, et cetera. You lose your lot, all this kind of raping and pillaging, et cetera. And so obviously, like I said, the only reason for me to be here now, per se, is to introduce individuals to what can change that. Like, I don't really fascinate myself by continuously talking about it, but I will tell you this. Out of everything that I discovered, and I've run multiple trials, I've used ultraviolet, I've been in frequency rooms shaped like shells. I've done a lot of different things from the individuals that I've been guided to along the path. I've tapped into scalar technology, been in a scalar room with one of the ladies that worked for NASA and was the only one that had one of these and was developing it. I've done a lot of different types of things, but I tell you the truth, there's nothing like high spin, because after a while, you don't even need it. And that wow doesn't even take long. It seems to be.
I was gonna ask you, how do we get that?
Right now I have a mock page. It's not public. It's basically for somewhat of the inner circle who just wants to read about it, and you could also acquire it if you wanted to. But what I would say is that the alchemy itself is done with understanding the substance, and then if you do want to bungee and go with the substance, then you won't be disappointed. And,
well, I'm like this goes back a few years ago with you familiar with Dr. Kozarev's work, the Russian scientist working on toroidal fields and spin.
Yeah, I think I've reviewed so much stuff, like I can't say.
And he used mirrors, and
I'm sure everyone's been copying off of him.
Yes,
basically.
Well, effectively, and this was where this whole chemtrail thing. This is going back into the fear porn days, but the reason why they use aluminum oxide is because aluminum creates a reverse of the natural toroidal spin of the feminine nature of Earth. Mm-hmm. It also creates a mirror, and high fructose corn sugar actually reverses our toroidal spin inside, and this is why it's been used so much in all the foods that we have, because it is a spiritual inhibitor.
Right, exactly.
It works in the opposite, you know?
And, I was also looking at how you guys were ciphering the Amen name. Remember the mane, or manes?
Yes, mane of the lion.
Manes is also the name of the actual spirits.
Oh,
and
there you
so
go.
I was telling you before that, we did narrow down that these spirits, what they are is what people sometimes call their ancestors. They're already like in that other plane. But because people don't know what their ancestors sound like anymore, they often mistake these beings for their ancestors. And generally, as you know, in the paperwork, there has been some kind of writing you off to these beings. And so you guys have the details. I've definitely listened to shows where you've explained it in detail, but that's what's really going on. That's what is involved in the spiritual pack. It's several generations. And so it's interesting because we've uncovered the actual spiritual connection of the invisible beings that are generally not visible to the naked eye, but you can see their actions as fingerprints. And then we've also uncovered on the logical plane the entire structure and how it's been set up. And then also in addition to that, we've discovered a pure source of energy that can actually be utilized for biolocal and organic grid communication. This means that anyone operating on high spin, this is the real thing, by the way, like it always baffles me, because sometimes I'll be like, man, this is just like the damn TV. Like, what the hell? Like, what kind of reality did I land in? Okay, fuck it. Let me just go right in the roll. Here it is, because it works. It's basically nuclear deformed hybrids inside of the body actually cause a higher spin, which bring the body into balance. That's one thing. But the first thing, of course, is always the actual cleansing of the body in order to clean off the filters. But most of these substances work intuitively. They're not aggressive, but you do notice the changes.